I'm told right now is coming out.
Of the colleges that we're talking about, they want to come back. We hope that Michigan agrees. We hope that, and I know the governor will have a lot to say about it. We hope she approves it. But we have a couple that Maryland's another one. We hope the governor puts a little pressure on so that we can have it. But I have a feeling they may do it. They may do it without having everybody. But I think they're going to have maybe Michigan, maybe Maryland. We have a couple of states that might not participate, but people are working very, very hard to get Big Ten football back, and I'm pushing it. And it'll be a great thing for our country, and the players and the coaches want to do it really badly. The players are missing. They only have so many years of this, and the players are missing a big opportunity, including the chance in some of the cases to have some of the best players, college players in our country. And they want to get into the NFL, and they want to make money in the NFL, and they're not going to be able to do that too easy if you don't get to see them play. It's much safer for students to live on campus, and low-risk young people would rather than the alternative. The alternative is no good than going home, spreading the virus to high-risk Americans. They want to be on campus. They want to go back to school, and the parents want them back in school, maybe more so than they want to be back in school. And they want to back safely, and they want to go back safely, but they have to go back. Based on the recent data from more than 20 colleges, not a single student who tested positive for the virus has been hospitalized. So that's a lot of people. That's a lot of students. Not one has been hospitalized. As we continue to follow the science-based approach to protect our people and vanquish the virus, Joe Biden continues to use the pandemic for political gain. Every time I see him, he starts talking about the pandemic. He's reading it off a teleprompter. I'm not allowed to use a teleprompter. Why is that, Phil? They ask questions and he starts reading the teleprompter. He says, move the teleprompter a little bit closer, please. I don't know. I think if I did that, I'd be in big trouble. I think that would be the story of the year. When I took early action in January to ban the travel and all travel to and from China, the Democrats and Biden in particular called it xenophobic. You remember that? Joe was willing to sacrifice American lives to placate the radical left, open border extremists. And we saved tens of thousands of lives, probably hundreds of thousands of lives. And we saved millions of lives by doing the closing and now the opening the way we did it. Joe's decision to publicly attack the China ban proved he lacks the character or intelligence or instinct to do what is right. Now, Biden's launched a public campaign against the vaccine, which is so bad because we have some vaccines coming that are incredible. Scott was telling me about some of the things that are happening, and it's very exciting, Scott. Thank you for being here. But you don't want to have anything having to do with the political purposes, being an anti-vaxxer. You don't want to be talking about the vaccines in a negative way, especially when you see the statistics that we're starting to see. They're incredible, actually. Biden's perfectly happy to endanger the lives of other people by doing something that he thinks is going to help him politically because his polls are getting very bad. They're getting very shaky. This was an election that was going to be very easy, very quick, and then the China virus came in, and I had to go back to work politically. Unfortunately, I had to devote more time politically than the other things we do, which are very important for our country. But I had to go back to work, and it looks like we're going up very rapidly, more rapidly than the media wants to admit. And Biden's had to go out. He's gotten out of his basement, and he's working. Let's see what happens. But we got to talk about how great these vaccines are, if in fact they're great. And I think you're going to see numbers that are going to be very, very impressive. The approach to the virus is a very unscientific blanket lockdown by the Democrats. That's what they're talking about, which takes all of these incredible statistics, records, and it throws them out the window. Now, they did say it would be based on the recommendation of the experts, but whether expert or not, we're not doing any more shutdowns. We did the shutdown, and now we're doing the opening, and there won't be any more shutdowns. There could be a little section, a small section, we have a breakout, but we're not talking about shutdowns like they were talking about, depending on experts. We're not going to be doing that. The swine flu was a disaster. You remember when, not nearly as deadly, not the same world, but when Joe Biden was vice president, his failed approach to the swine flu was disastrous. He called it N1H1. It's actually H1N1. You remember the H comes before the N, so it's sort of easy to remember, right? But Joe always calls it the opposite way. But call it the swine flu. It was disastrous. And his own chief of staff said that when Biden helped manage the swine flu in 2009, they, quote, did everything possible wrong. And 60 million Americans got H1N1 in that period of time. This is a quote from his chief of staff. And it's just purely a fortuity that this isn't one of the great mass casualties events. It had nothing to do with us doing anything right because we did everything wrong. It was a disaster. It was a disaster. And now he's telling us how to manage. He can't manage himself. 270,000 Americans were hospitalized during this attack. The outbreak was so rampant that the Obama administration told states to stop testing. We don't want any tests because they don't want to show all of the things that tests show. By the way, we're setting a record on testing. Our testing is at a level that nobody's ever seen before. We're substantially greater than the second country, which is India, by the way, which has 1.5 billion people, but we're 50 million tests ahead, 50 million ahead. And they ordered the CDC to stop counting tests and stop counting cases, and then left us a depleted stockpile, which is what I inherited. I inherited a very badly depleted stockpile. In other words, Biden's record demonstrates that if he had been in charge of this very serious, highly, highly contagious epidemic or pandemic, the China virus, countless more Americans would have died. And if we didn't do what we did, and I say it all the time now because the media likes to belittle what we've done has been incredible. Now you can look at Europe and you can look at other places and you can start comparing. Biden is weak on China. Yesterday it was revealed that a fund partly owned by Joe Biden's son Hunter facilitated the sale of a Michigan auto parts producer to a leading Chinese military defense contractor. You don't want to write about that, do you? Biden spent his entire career selling Michigan jobs to China. Now the Biden family is selling out our country directly to the Chinese military, which has to do with this company that Hunter, here we go with Hunter again. He didn't have a job. Now all of a sudden he's selling companies from Michigan to China. China's military got American manufacturing jobs, and the Biden family got paid a lot of money. And I say it, if Joe Biden ever got elected, China will own America. They will own America. Finally, I can announce with great pride that Secretary of State Mike Pompeo will be departing this evening on a historic trip to Doha. That's Qatar, for the beginning of intra-Afghan peace negotiations. We've been negotiating with them for quite some time, getting along with them. Moved a lot of soldiers out. I got a report this morning that there's been nobody killed in Afghanistan since early February. It's a long time. There's been no deaths, no problems, and a lot of progress is being made in Afghanistan, but we'll be down to 4,000 soldiers in a very short period of time. Likewise, Iraq will be down to about 2,000 soldiers in a very short period of time. And in Syria, for the most part, we're out, other than we kept the oil. And so we have soldiers guarding the oil, not too many, I think, small number, but they're guarding the oil. And we're helping the Kurds, and we're making their lives much more pleasant because of the fact that we have the oil. So we're pretty much out of Syria. We're pretty much out of Iraq, and we're down to the smallest force that we've had in, we'll be very shortly down to that number in Afghanistan. The negotiations are a result of a bold diplomatic effort one part of my administration in recent months and years. The United States will play an important role in bringing the parties together to end the decades-long war. It's been going on for almost 20 years, long before I got involved, I can tell you that. And had they not been wasting our time with all of the phony witch hunts and all of the things, we probably could have done this even faster. But a lot of time had to be spent, wasted like that. But the parties are together right now, and we're negotiating, and we're really making tremendous progress.
So we're continuing to listen to President Trump there at that news conference. He's probably going to start taking questions any minute now. When he does, we'll bring that to you. We just wanted to give you a quick update on some of the things the president has been saying, many of them falsehoods, some of them personal attacks against Joe Biden. We'll go against those in just a moment. The president said he did save or could have saved millions of lives as a result of the actions that he took. In fact, earlier on this program, we were just talking about how 36,000 lives could have been saved had the president acted earlier with some of the social distance guidelines that were ultimately put in place. So that was already one falsehood that had been picked up. The president also saying that deaths are rapidly going down and not seeing cases of spikes. That again goes against what Anthony Fauci was saying earlier today. We played that clip earlier in the program saying he is still very much concerned about the spikes that we're seeing take place across the country, in particular, those that may be happening in a couple of weeks as a result of the Labor Day. The president directing some criticism and falsehoods against Joe Biden, saying that he relies on a teleprompter to take questions. There's no evidence of that. The president himself frequently uses teleprompters in a lot of the events that he speaks in. That is obviously very well known. He defended saying that he does not, or he would be criticized if he used a teleprompter. That is not the case. Joe Biden has not launched a public campaign against vaccinations. That is not true. The president saying that Joe Biden has launched a public campaign for that, and also saying that Joe Biden endangers the lives of other people. Again, another falsehood that came out of the president there speaking at the White House. We're going to continue to keep an eye on that for you, but let's go back and listen to the president as he addresses the press.
Some time ago, on the basis that they didn't seem to want to make peace, and we'll think about it once we have a deal, but I've ended that quite a while ago. I'm frankly surprised they haven't been to the table earlier. But this is the best way. This is a way that's going to be great. This can really bring the Middle East together. And again, since February, we haven't had a death in Afghanistan, that's a record for many years, not a death. And we're getting along very, very well with the Taliban and very well with Afghanistan and its representatives, and we'll see how it all goes. It's a negotiation, but Secretary of State Mike Pompeo will be departing in a little while. So I think that's very exciting news. And a lot of people thought that my natural instinct is war. No, my natural instinct is actually peace. When we were on the debate stage, people used to say, will it be 1 week or 2 weeks before President Trump gets into a war? But that's not. I did rebuild our military. We have a military that $2.5 trillion, new jets and rockets and tanks and ships and a lot of things we have. We have the newest, best military we've ever had. So hopefully we won't have to use it. Our nuclear program has been put into gear like never before. And in particular, hopefully we won't have to use that, because that's a whole new level of destruction, and we never want to. Just have to pray to God we never have to use that. All right, please, John.
Thank you, Mr. President. Why did you lie to the American people, and why should we trust what you have to say
That's
now?
a terrible question, and the phraseology. I didn't lie. What I said is we have to be calm. We can't be panicked. I knew that the tapes were. These were a series of phone calls that we had, mostly phone calls, and Bob Woodward is somebody that I respect just from hearing the name for many, many years, not knowing too much about his work, not caring about his work. But I thought it would be interesting to talk to him for a period of, calls. So we did that. I don't know if it's good or bad. I don't even know if the book is good or bad. But certainly if he thought that was a bad statement, he would have reported it, because he thinks that, you don't want to have anybody that is going to suffer medically because of some fact. And he didn't report it because he didn't think it was bad. Nobody thought it was bad. Wait a minute. And your question, the way you phrase that is such a disgrace. It's a disgrace to ABC television network. It's a disgrace to your employer. And that's the answer. You ready? Because I love. Of course I didn't. Of course I didn't.
It was deadlier than the flu, and then you went out and told the American public that this was just like the flu.
Let me tell you something. We've had flu years.
You told everybody else something else.
No, and 5 times, right? 5 times. You ever hear the expression 5 times? We've had flu years where we lost 100,000 people. The flu is a very serious problem for this country also. And we've been losing them. Scott, what kind of a number have we lost over the years with flus? Into the hundreds of thousands.
Well, I mean, the last 5 years have been something like 35 to 80,000 per year, every year. Even with antiviral drugs and even with
Flu is a very serious problem also. But just so you know,
this is worse than the most deadlier than the most strenuous flu.
okay?
And then you went out and said it's just like the flu.
What I went out and said is very simple. Listen, what I went out and said is very simple. I want to show a level of confidence, and I want to show strength as a leader, and I want to show that our country is going to be fine one way or the other. Whether we lose one person, we shouldn't lose any, because this shouldn't have happened. This is China's fault. This is nobody's fault but China. China should not have allowed it to happen. Whether you have one person, 180,000 people, or 2.5 or 3 million people, which it could have been very seriously if we didn't make the moves. And when you look at the opposition, where they said, oh, why did he put the ban on? Dr. Fauci said we saved hundreds of thousands of lives by putting the ban on China and then ultimately putting the ban on Europe. There was no lie here. What we're doing is we're leading, and we're leading in a proper way. And if, frankly, somebody else was leading it, they wouldn't have closed it. If you look at Nancy Pelosi, you look at Cuomo, you look at de Blasio, you look at Biden, months later they said there's no problem. They're talking about me. Months later, and before any statement was made, you have to remember, I put the ban on China. So obviously, outwardly, I said it's a very serious problem. And it's always a serious problem. That doesn't mean I'm going to jump up and down in the air and start saying, people are going to die, people are going to die. No, I'm not going to do that. We're going to get through this, and we're right now, I hope, really think we're rounding the final turn. And a lot of good things are happening with vaccines and with therapeutics. But there's no lying. And the way you asked that question is very disgraceful. Phil, go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Yeah,
I do think so. I think we did a great job. I think we did a great job. And the people that did such, our generals, our admirals, Mike Pence, all of the people that have worked so hard, and now Dr. Atlas, and all of them, Dr. Fauci, Dr. Birx, they should be respected for the job they've done.
So you won't downplay it again. You won't downplay it again, because you said you downplayed it. That's what you told me.
All I'm doing is, no, I don't want to jump up and down and start screaming death, death, because that's not what it's about. We have to lead a country. We're leading a great country, and we're doing a great job. And the people that have done such a good job should be given the kind of credit that they deserve. We possibly have done the best jobs when you start looking at what we're doing with the vaccines and therapeutics and ventilators. We had no ventilators, John. We make thousands of ventilators now a month, and we're supplying them to the whole world. The job we've done is the best job. And don't give me any credit. Give the people that have done this the credit. They've done a great job. Yeah, Phil, go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. President, you talked about the need to stay calm and not just put it down and scare people. A lot of other world leaders were calm. German Chancellor Angela Merkel was very calm as she presented information to the German people so that they could stay safe and protect their families. So why, as you as President of the United States, did you not level with the American people? Did you not share the information that you knew at the time in real
Well, I
time?
don't know what Angela's doing, but if you look at the European Union right now, they're having breakouts like you've never seen before, and frankly, their numbers are at a level that are much worse than the numbers here. We have done much better than the European Union. I just read you numbers that are not good on their behalf and that are very good on ours, and we have rounded the final turn, and we're going to have vaccines very soon, maybe much sooner than you think. Listen, maybe much sooner than you think. But we have done a phenomenal job. And the people that have done this job, including the American public that's had to put up with a lot, with the lockdowns and all of the things that they had to do, they have to be given credit. They have to be given credit.
You knew this was a deadly virus. You knew it was airborne, you knew on February 7th, you told Bob Woodward how it transferred from person to person in the air, how deadly it was. Why did you not come to the podium and
Well, let me ask you this.
people
If
what
Bob
happened?
Woodward thought that was bad, because this is stuff that everyone knew, there's a report that I have here someplace where China said it was airborne earlier than the statements I made. People knew it was airborne. This was nothing. This was no big. When I say it was airborne, everybody knew it was airborne. This was no big
I
thing.
know that in February.
But read the reports.
In the month of January, when we was all tied up in this hypocrisy scandal pertaining to the impeachment hearings and the impeachment trial, which to me it wasn't a trial. But whenever you see a country like China put together a 2,000 bed hospital in a week that ordinarily should take at least 6 months on their terms, not on ours, but on theirs. Whenever you see this type of movement happening in other countries pertaining to the coronavirus, there should have been whistles and bells that should have went off on every level, regardless whether it was here in America or in other parts of the country. And I'm kind of like him on this. It was issued out as airborne, but rather than to hammer on it being airborne to the point that the people feel defenseless and the people feel hopeless, they tried to kind of like do the little farmer that was feeding his cows. Rather than dump the whole load on them all at once, they kind of tried to issue it out bale at a time. Now, whether or not that was the right technique or the wrong technique, I can understand the president by him saying that it was to help to eliminate a panic that could have very well started in one country, that would have escalated into another, that would have turned into nothing but a free-for-all. You keep in mind, whenever they charge me what they charge me for, in 2005, right up the road here in a little town called Martin, Tennessee, for falsifying files, it basically means the same thing. It means that you have ushered in a panic to a group of people, and it doesn't matter if they're in an auditorium, it doesn't matter if they're in a stadium, it doesn't matter if they're in a concert, it doesn't matter if they're in a church, it doesn't matter if they're in a ball game, that if you have broadcasted false information to a group of people to the point that you have uttered or started a panic to the point that a stampede had been created, and now people are running over themselves and they're killing each other, kind of like we've seen overseas, then it has terrorism type implications, according to what they said about falsifying files. But as far as I am concerned, all this drug abuse that has inundated this country is worse than terrorism ever thought about being, because now it's affecting not just us as a massive group, but now it's affecting us in our homes, in our workplaces. It's affecting us in our neighborhoods. It's affecting us in other areas. And as far as I'm concerned, these narcotic institutions should all load up and go home, because they have allowed for the drug culture to invade the American way of life. They have allowed for this to happen. Now, whether or not it happened intentionally or non-intentionally, as far as them not being able to handle their job, I don't know. Maybe there was too much of it, that they just was overwhelmed and they couldn't handle it. But the fact of the matter is that those institutions that was supposed to have been on the top have failed the American people by allowing for all this to come in, to creep in to our families and to our neighborhoods and to our lives, to the point that the drug culture has almost completely destroyed America. And not only has it almost destroyed America, but it has almost destroyed other countries too as well. So it needs to be looked upon in a terrorism implementing type form. Drugs, drug abuse. I understand what the president's saying, and it is a tight line to walk. You know, how do you tell the people that this is going to occur without starting an uproar? Well, you do it once more, just like the farmer did. Instead of giving them the whole load, you usher out one bale at a time. I was actually accused of that 30 plus years ago, whenever I first started issuing out my message to the American people pertaining to the opening of the seals, the book of Revelations, the two witnesses, the opening of the seven trumpets, pertaining to end-time biblical Bible prophecy. I was actually accused of trying to dump the whole load upon the American people. So I tried to implement it, bale at a time. Well, here's this generation. Let's give them a portion of the truth. Here's this group of people. Let's give them a portion of the truth. Here's this bunch of people. Let's give them a portion of the truth. Just as of 48 hours ago, an individual that was raised up here in this area, and whenever I say in this area, I'm talking less than 2 miles away, by the name of Brother Eden, that is now holding a church up towards Buck Cannon, Paris Landing area. As of 48 hours ago, I had a Carroll County deputy cop call me up, or try to call me up. After he left his message, I didn't bother with him because I pretty well knowed what he was going to say. The fact of the matter is, Brother Eaton, the very one that saved me or helped to lead me to the Lord whenever I was only 13, 14 years old in 1973, his father, the very son that I'm talking about, had a overreaction pertaining to me issuing out my message up to him, give or take about 35, 40 miles from here. Now, after somebody has been doing this for 30-something years, you would think by now that a minister that had been full-time minister for 7 or 8 years would have done already heard about Brother Jackson, Brother Juby Jackson down here in Hopin, that was issuing out his message. But apparently, the message is not getting out. Going one bale at a time. One generation at a time. One group or one organization at a time. Apparently the message is still not getting out because I literally thought that I was fixing to get in trouble by an individual that I haven't spoken to or talked to for over 40 plus years. Him or his father or his mother that used to live right here in the Cydonia community. So how does the bad news barrier bring forth the bad news? Does he do it one leg, one arm, one ear at a time? The one that's coming from the military to tell his son, to tell the mother and the father that the son or the daughter has been executed in the line of duty while being in service? No. You tell them the whole load. You don't tell them one finger at a time. You don't tell them one toe at a time. You don't tell them one leg at a time. People are going to have to grow up. And I realized the reason why the president was doing this was because he didn't want to start a panic with a bunch of babies. Well, who has babied the crowd? The leaders, the politicians, the preachers, the examiners, the professionals. Those are the people that has left people like us in the dark. And the whole time, I've been trying to put my message out a bell at a time. And once I realized that this method or technique or this tactic is no longer being effective, now is whenever the wrath of God pertaining to the great sorrows has befallen upon to the American way of life. And it's not just falling in the form of a pandemic, but it's falling in the form of every area, in every institution that you can think of, not just here in America, but throughout the planet. And until the people wake up and go back and do thy first works over again towards getting a lot of this corruption and sin and wickedness out of their lives, we're going to see more and more death toll pertaining to the pandemic. We're going to see more and more extreme weather patterns, regardless whether it's fires or floods. We're going to see more and more hurricanes. We're going to see more and more radical weather changes like you have never, ever experienced before. They claim that right now, the fires in California alone have exceeded 20% of acreage in comparison to where they was this time last year. Last year, at this very same time, they had exceeded what they had done the year before. So every year, we're getting a little bigger, a little wider, a little worser. The hurricanes are coming now in two form instead of one. And then instead of us getting just one hurricane, we liable to get 4 or 5 hurricanes. It is intensifying on every level. And if this president wants to sit there and blow smoke about how that we have went over the curve, that's up to him. That's up to him. But I'm telling you right now, we have not made it to the final curve. A matter of fact, this winter could very well be our darkest curve, could very well be our worst curve. And I realize once more, he don't want to tell you the truth. He don't want to start a panic. He don't want to get people overly concerned. But once more, if you're the bad news barrier, and that's what people are hiring you to do, how come he can't get up there and inject the truth to the American people and do so in a Joe Osteen sugar-coated type way that it don't create such of a panic? It is a tight walk to walk. It is. Just like me ushering out my message to the general public that has helped to eliminate the Cold War pertaining to nuclear armament, a nuclear holocaust. But that wasn't the primary reason why Christ chose me to do this. The primary reason that God chosen me for me to do this is because of the end time message that is upon us, not just physically, not just emotionally, but also spiritually. This is the real deal. This has nothing to do with something that some man has created in regards to what I'm doing with the Windmill Ministries. Now, people may think that it is. And if they think that, that's fine. But as we progress and get further into this, I can see day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, it's getting worse. We didn't have all this protesting and all these uprisings and looting and all this violence going on this time last year, but we are now. So I'm going to leave this message right here because I got to go get my cat that I've just recently had operated on. And as we say and always say and will continue to say, good luck. Good luck to each and every one of us. Because I'm pretty sure, no, I ain't pretty sure, I am sure, the worst has yet to come. And some may say, well, the best has yet to come. Well, it just depends on what you're looking at and how that you're looking at it. Is the glass half full or half empty? Whenever you say the best is yet to come, that in actuality may very well mean the worst is yet to come. You know, whenever you have the unemployment rate that has went crazy, whenever you have mama papa businesses and restaurants that is folded up and can't stay together right now because of everything being all topsy-turvy, whenever you have our children that's in school one day and out the next, whenever you have all these outbreaks that's going on pertaining to the coronavirus, we're far from being at the final curve, folks. I wish that I could blow smoke and tell you that Mr. Trump can wave this magic wand over America and everything's going to be hunky-dory and we can go back to our regular lifestyles as we was living prior to all this. I don't think we'll ever go back to our prior lifestyles as they was prior to all this, because I personally think if we do, God will destroy us. We was right there at the brink towards Gable fixing to blow the trumpet and the saints of God being ushered out of here. And if the wicked and the demonic and the hard-headed and the unbelievers think that they're going through troublesome times now, wait until the great tribulation period falls upon this planet. They haven't seen hard times. They haven't seen harshness. They haven't seen horror towards being terrorized whenever that takes place. I didn't write the book. I didn't create the creation. I didn't form a mutiny against the heavenly kingdom thousands of years ago towards challenging the Heavenly Father that contaminated mankind, going all the way back to the Garden of Eden. These things ain't my fault. And if humanity wants to blame me for these things, well, then that will be up to them. But I'm not running for public office. I don't care if you vote for me or not. I don't care if you like me or not. I don't care if you support me or not. You haven't supported me in 30 plus years. What makes me think that suddenly, all of a sudden, I'm going to have this Joel Osteen team that's going to come forward out of the blue overnight that's going to support the Windmill Ministries? If you hadn't supported the Windmill Ministries in 30-something years, get real. Do you really think that I've got my hopes up that society is going to fall in line? Good luck to all of us. Just like I was talking to somebody a while ago that was getting around in one of those electric chairs in Walmart a while ago. I said something to him about it getting bad, and he looked at me and said, I don't care. And I could tell by looking at him. He was kind of like me. He was a diabetic. I could tell with him being overweight, getting around in his little electric chair. He was probably my age or older. And I looked at the guy and said, well, how about the children? How about their future? And he looked back at me. He said, well, I don't care about that neither. He said, that's their tough luck. And see, that's the way the majority of people look at the children, the millennials growing up. They really don't care about their hard luck that they're going to have to be embarked upon, that they're going to inherit because of what that we have done. We have a whole lot more people out there that has the I don't cares than we have the people that cares. And whenever you have a society like that, you have a very, very wicked, cold society. Good luck to all of us, and shalom.